Welcome to Ørlev Kloster, here at the bottom of the Limfjord. This is one of the best preserved convents we have here in Denmark and in the Nordic countries as a whole. The place is used today as a curative residence, and in some ways it's a funny story because the house here was built in the 1200s, and today, nearly 900 years later, it's still used for the same function. The very first date we have for our nuns is from 1219. But we know that the nuns are here already before this period, so where are the first buildings? We believe that they lie hidden underneath the grass here in the meadows, just south of the monastery. Yeah, we've moved into the dining room of the East Range. Looking at this room, it doesn't really seem to be that old. It's a typical Baroque 18th century room. But this is actually the oldest room we have in the monastery. The walls here go right back to the 1300s and the 1400s. And it's a very good example of what actually happened for the monastery here. Because the last nun left the buildings here in 1587. And since then it became a manor house. Around 1900, and especially the First World War, agricultural prices were low, it was hard times to have a big manor house. So the place basically went bankrupt. And the house here, this huge house, basically stood empty. And in the course of about 10 and 20 years, basically started falling apart. So when we reach around 1925, 1929, this house is basically a ruin. And it's at that point that something quite fantastic happens. Because in 1929, the owners of the house had actually threatened the state that they would start to pull it down. And then something fantastic happens. A countess came cycling by on her bike accidentally, fell in love with the place, and while she ate her lunch on the grass lawn here beside it, and went in through the west wing. There was no windows, so there was no problem. And she basically decided, this is where I want to live. And she was 60 years old at the time, and her name was Countess Olga Sponnik. The Countess bought the house in 1934 and moved into this room, and basically spent the next 30 years refurbishing the house and basically trying to be sure that the house would actually survive herself. And it was very important for her that when she died, which she did in 1964, that there was a very important function for the place. It was her wish, dying wish, that the house should function as this curative residence. So after 1964, a couple of years building work ensures that in 1969 the house could actually open as a curative residence, and one of Denmark's oldest residences as such. And since then, the last 41 years, it's functioned as such. And we have guests from all of Denmark, Northern Europe, from America, New Zealand, from the whole world basically. They come here to the northern part of Fjends, here at the bottom of the Limfjord, to this special place full of history.